Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I am your other no shorty, and it's going to be a quiet week, this one. We're a day late to the bank holiday. There's no Image comics been released this week to the UK, but I am going to still review stuff that I like and stuff that I find interesting, and it is going to be one that I like to start the day. Unsurprisingly, because it's by Chris Condon, and I'm a huge fan of his. I've read damn near everything he's done. He's even nice enough to send me one of his Mad Cave books as PDF, because UK stores can't get Mad Cave books at the moment, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that I'm not giving this a great review, and yeah, spoilers, great review, because it happens to be that he's a nice guy who sent me some stuff. That helps, certainly. But for the most part, it's because it's a damn good comic, and it fits into a lot of stuff I really like. We're going to talk about artwork first, though. This is Sean Curanero, and I apologise if I pronounced that name wrong, who's done a fantastic job of, kind of low-keying his artwork, but making it absolutely beautiful. Very simple but dynamic line work, no bold guttering for the panels, not even any lines around the speech bubbles, which is really quite a nice take to do it. An awful lot of the artwork we get is more a vibe. There's quite a lot of people with faces and shadows, so I don't really see that much of them. There's quite a lot of really nice angles on things where it leaves far more to the imagination than just out and out showing you everything that's going on. And yeah, I know this is a whole show don't tell kind of thing with artwork. You think showing is the exact point of doing it, but it is the equivalent of doing that for artwork as it would be for writing. It's kind of showing us that we have room to interpret art, even if it's presented to us in ink on paper with various colours. We still can make decisions about what it means to us, and sometimes leaving a little bit to the imagination is a great thing. It also is very softly done with a very limited colour palette. For the most part, only one colour per panel or per page or per setting even, with some little mixes up in there which gives us a chance to look at things slightly differently. We do have the difference between city settings and the Wild West, and when there are flashbacks and things that may or may not be what they appear to be, there may be false memories, there may be hallucinations, we get some different kind of play with those, which feels like it could go against what you've been saying, the show don't tell, when it literally is the bold changes of quite a washed out colour palette feel like they'd be a bit more striking, but it still does leave it, because it never really explicitly says what's going on. It still leaves an awful lot to imagination. But the story is the main reason I love it, and a big thing for that is I'm a big fan of Wild West kind of stuff, and I like stories set within it which are very good at dismantling the mythology of it. Don't get me wrong, there are some very exceptional stories that happened about some truly amazing people, but a friend of mine recently recommended a TV show to me about some people doing the Oregon Trail, and I did love it, but I found myself being frustrated by the main character in it seeming to be this very much like, I'm going to do it all on my own, and yes, there's other people going with me, but I am this bold person who's going and striking out on my own, very much rugged individualism that the mythology of Wild West was built on, when the truth of the matter is these people could not have done it on their own at all. The reason why there were huge wagon trains going is that because it'd be very easy for these people going on their own to just out and out die. And this is a story of what happens when somebody, because of misplaced pride, plus some other problems, which I'm not going to get into, don't want to spoil anything, decides he knows better than other people. He gets taken in, effectively, and strikes out on his own, or would be on his own if he didn't also take his wife and child with him. And it becomes this deeply harrowing, very dark story about not just the potential horrors of the unknown, but coupled that with the very known horrors of pride, masculinity, toxic specifically, and this idea that there's nobody can tell you what to do better than you know yourself. That kind of almost anti-intellectualism of just, no, I know best, I know what's going on. And the idea that you can be taken in by a scam, but you would rather maintain the idea that you wouldn't have been clever enough to be taken in by a scam instead of admitting you were, moving on from that and trying to redress the damage that's been done. Now, these are all big concepts, and I can totally get why that might not be why people would go for a Wild West comic book, but that is kind of how art works. We do get these kind of stories told through different mediums, told through a different lens, and it invites the reader, the person who's engaging with the art, to make their own conclusions, to look at what's being put down on the page and figure out what they want from it. There's some slightly more obvious stuff in here. I mean, like the rugged individualism literally gets almost everyone killed. But then there's also the story of what happened, how people interpreted what they were told after the fact compared to what actually happened. But then it also leaves some room for maybe an unreliable narrator, maybe somebody who sees parallels between other stories that allow them to make more sense of it instead of just accepting the horror of what happened. So all of this kind of comes together to be a multifaceted story with fantastic characters, wonderful art, that I think speaks volumes to the mythology of the Wild West and how we should examine those myths and look at them from different angles and try to get down to the humanity of them. All in all, absolutely fantastic, damn near perfect, highly recommended. That's all from me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after yourself, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!